Okay, so very good morning, and let's start this lecture on it will be more detail on space mechanics. So last class we started this topic of angular momentum, and a quick review that angular momentum represented by variable h about a point O is given by r vector cross mv vector. The derivative of or rate of change of angular momentum should be equal to the net moment acting on that particle about that point O. Then we talked about the central force that if we are talking about any satellite rotating around Earth or any other planet, there is only one gravitational force which is acting towards the center. So the idea is that moment becomes zero, and therefore the angular momentum is constant. It means that the particle is going to move in a planar motion. So that is a very important conclusion that we that we had drawn yesterday in the last class. And then we also talked about this concept that the magnitude of angular momentum is constant, means that if the particle is closer to the satellite is closer to the planet, it is going to move fast, and if it is farther away from the planet, it is going to move slowly, right? So what we said is the aerial velocity. So we said angular momentum per unit mass is given by h is equal to r square theta dot, that is constant, and which is the same as your aerial velocity. Aerial velocity is h over 2. And that's what we had seen in the last class. In this class, it's going to be hopefully an interesting class on predicting the trajectory of the satellite or particle moving, right? So trajectory of particle moving in central force or central force field. So the question which in few classes back some of you raised, that whether it is going to move in a circle or ellipse or some other thing, what is the type of motion that is going to take place? That is what we will try to derive in this class. So the idea is we want to predict the trajectory. It basically boils down to we want to get a differential equation for trajectory of I can say particle, or same thing, you can have satellite or any other thing that we are talking about, right? So to derive this differential equation, we have to consider, so let's see the geometry. So let us say this is the main big planet, and around it we want to have this motion of a particle P. This is O. Now, if I consider this as my reference line, and we will represent it everything in polar coordinates. So this is r vector, and then this from this reference line is this angle theta, right? Because we are measuring everything from the planet. So let's say we are on the planet and we want to analyze the motion of a satellite or meteor or something. So this is the radial unit vector er cap, and perpendicular to that is your e theta cap. Well, in this figure, it may appear that it is tangent, but it is not necessary that this is going to be tangent as well. So I can have, for example, I can have another figure where this is the path, and so now you can see that this is er cap, and this is e theta cap. So point is that this need not be necessary to this path, right? So we are not talking about this normal and tangential component. So that is, tangent and normal to this path, but this is with respect to this point O. So this is ER and E theta cap. Now we'll write the equation of motion, right? So we have F is equal to mass into acceleration is the Newton's laws. So using this Newton's law, we will write it in the radial direction and in the angular direction. So if I write in the radial direction, the equation is m times r double dot minus r theta dot square. So this is the acceleration of the particle in the radial direction, and this is equal to minus of f. Right? So currently we are assuming that this particle P is attracted by a force F, which is directed towards the center O. Right? So that is the and this is the direction of ER cap. So therefore, this is minus F. So we are considering the gravitational field, which is attractive. So that's why it is opposite in ER direction. So it's minus F. Same way, if I write the angular component, the angular component is m times r theta double dot plus 2r dot theta dot is equal to 0. So there is no force perpendicular to the radial direction. So these are the two equations that we have, and in fact this equation is the same equation that we have derived using the moment balance or the angular momentum this thing. So in fact this equation can be rewritten as m by times d by dt of r theta dot square, and if I put so it will be 2r dot, so there will be a 2 here, and there will be a 1, I think, theta dot here. So this is exactly same thing, and if this is equal to 0, then effectively means that this quantity is constant, and which is what we had written earlier, right? So we had written that h is equal to r square theta dot, which is the angular momentum per unit mass, and this has to be constant for a system. So this is the the second equation gives you, or is the same equation as what we get from the angular momentum concept. And so now the idea is we want to combine these equations to get one equation in terms of theta and r, right? So we want to get a relationship between theta and r for the particle P, so that if we can plot that, we can get the trajectory of the moving satellite. That's the idea. So we have to eliminate a couple of things, right? So for example, I have to eliminate r double dot. So to do that, let's consider, now here there is a little bit mathematical manipulations. So if I consider r dot, which is your dr by dt, and if I take it, change the variable, use the chain rule, it's dr by dt times theta dot. Now theta dot, I can use this expression and I can say theta dot is h by r square. So this is as it is times h by r square. So so this is that expression, and again if I want to take r inside the derivative, I can write this as h times d by d theta of 1 by r with a negative sign. So its derivative is going to be 1 by r square times dr by d theta, with a negative sign. So this and this are same. So I have expressed r dot as this expression, and we'll take one more derivative to get r double dot. So it is d by dt of r dot, and now again we will use the chain rule. So this is dr dot by d theta times d theta by dt. And so now d by d theta of r dot is this expression, we'll substitute it here, minus h times d by d theta of 1 by r times theta dot is h by r square. So this becomes h by r square. That's it. So we'll simplify this. Anyway, h is constant, so h will come out. So it's minus h square d2 theta by d2 by d theta square times 1 by r, and then you have r square outside, so this goes here, 1 by r square. So it is r double dot is equal to minus of h square by r square d2 by d theta square of 1 by r. Okay, so I think now we are reasonably set up to get the differential equation, and now we will substitute everything into this equation. Let me copy this equation. So now this is the equation, and we'll substitute r double dot here. Let's take m on the other side. So so on the right hand side becomes minus f by m, and r double dot is minus of h square by r square d2 by d theta square 1 by r. Okay, minus r theta dot is h by r square, again using this expression again and again. So it is h by r square whole square is equal to minus of f by m. Now if I take h square on the other side, cancel the negative sign, and even take the r square on the other side as well. So we'll be left with d2 by d theta square of 1 by r minus no, this will become plus 1 by r is equal to f by m h square, right? So I've multiplied by r square and divided by h square. So yes, this is r power 4 r cube multiply, yeah, 1 by r. Okay. So this is the equation that we have got, and this is a relationship between r and theta, right? Which is what we wanted to get. Now, right, so this is a differential equation between r and theta, but again r is expressed as 1 over r. So let's make a substitution, or let's make a let's substitute 1 by r as a variable u. So that's a standard substitution that or change of variable that that is done. So if I make this substitution, then, or change of variable, then it becomes d2u by d theta square plus u is equal to f over m h square u square. Right. So this is the differential equation which will determine the trajectory of the particle subjected to any central force F. And now let us be more specific so for space mechanics, we know that the F, which is your gravitational force, is equal to G capital M small m by R square. And based on the substitution that we have done, 1 over R we have said as a variable U. So it is Gm m U square, right? Capital M is the mass of the Earth, or the big central object. Small m is your satellite, the particle moving around. So if I make this substitution, and if I substitute this thing here, you can see that again u square cancels off, and we will get even a simpler differential equation. So we get d2u by d theta square plus u is equal to gm by h square. It's a very somewhat simple differential equation that we have obtained between u and theta. Now gm by h square, this is a constant, right? Now if I consider a differential equation which is d2u by d theta square plus u is equal to 0, this is what is your homogeneous differential equation, right? Homogeneous part of the differential equation, and the homogeneous solution will be of the form of some constant c times a sine function or a cosine function, right? So you can see here that a variable u, so we want to get u as a function of theta, right? So if I differentiate it one time and if I differentiate it two times, we should get something similar like that of u. And this property is satisfied only by a sine function, cosine function, or an exponential function, e power iota theta. So these three functions are all same, and these are called as harmonic functions. And and therefore the solution, the homogeneous part of the solution, will be some constant c multiplied by cosine of theta. And again, this constant c can be determined from the initial conditions. And then this is the particular solution. And if u is equal to this constant gm by h square, then also this differential equation will be satisfied, right? Because its double derivative is 0, so this goes off and this satisfies, right? So the general solution is the combination of your homogeneous part and the particular solution. So it is c cos theta plus gm by h square, and this is the and now I can write this as back as 1 over r. So this is the solution of the differential equation, and this gives us a relation between r and theta, which will give us the trajectory of the moving satellite. Interestingly, when this general equation is the equation of conic section in polar coordinates. So, so this is the conic section equation, the generalized conic section equation in polar coordinates, and this can be so here the origin is your origin or point O is the focus of your conic section, and the polar axis is your axis of symmetry. Now this conic section equation, again, a generalized conic section can be parabola, hyperbola, ellipse, anything, right? So I'm sure you have studied in your coordinate geometry in your previous years. So now to get the specific case, let us define a variable, let's say epsilon, which we call as eccentricity. As a ratio of this constant c divided by gm by h square. So again, the constant c may not be clear as of now, but as we have said before, it is determined by the initial conditions, and we'll be talking more about it. So given a constant c and this ratio gm by h square, h is angular momentum per unit mass, we can define a constant, this has eccentricity epsilon. And if I kind of eliminate c or write c in terms of epsilon, then I can rewrite this above equation, the trajectory, as 1 over r is equal to gm by h square 1 plus epsilon cosine of theta. Now this is the, you can say again the conic section equation, but now here we can see the three types of possibilities. So there are three cases or three possibilities. So the first case is when epsilon is, let's say, greater than 1. So when epsilon is greater than 1 means c is greater than gm by h square. When this number is when this number is greater than 1, then there will be two thetas there will be two thetas, let's say theta 1 and theta 2, for which 1 plus epsilon cos theta is going to be equal to 0. Right? So there will be two values of theta which will exist. So let's say epsilon is equal to 2. Then you will have, 60 degrees and minus 60 degrees, for which, no, not 60 degrees. It's going to be, 180 minus 60, 120 degrees. Right? So you'll have two values of theta for which this thing is going to be 0. And if this thing is going to be 0, it means that it implies that your r is going to approach infinity. And if r is going to approach infinity, in fact, this case corresponds to a hyperbola case. So the idea is that here is your sun or main planet, and then for some values of theta thing, let's say 120 degrees, just to give you an example. This curve is not correct. You'll, at this value of, it will be infinity, right? The same way, something like this. So this case corresponds to a curve of hyperbola. And if a particle starts from here, again with these conditions, and more details we will see soon. So if a particle starts something like this, then it will follow the trajectory of hyperbola, and if it goes in the upward direction, it will go and it will just go off, and so that's the trajectory for the first case. The second case is when, again, let me copy this equation. The second case is when the epsilon is equal to 1. So when epsilon is equal to 1, which is your C is equal to Gm by h square, your 1 plus cos theta will go to 0 when theta is equal to 180 degrees. And again, if you plot this curve, in the polar coordinates, you can write a simple program and plot it. And this curve will turn out to be a parabola. So again, you'll have a planet something like this, and then you'll have this, right? So at theta is equal to 180 degrees, it will reach infinity. It's the second case. And the third case is when your this epsilon value is less than 1. So when epsilon is less than 1, or your C is less than Gm by h square, in that case, R will always be finite. So if epsilon is less than 1, your R will be finite. For all values of theta. And this curve, if epsilon is less than 1, this will lead to the curve which is ellipse. And this is what has been quite standard, that the planet will move in an ellipsoid motion around that planet, that the satellite is going to move in an ellipsoid motion. And coming down further, a special case of this ellipse. So ellipse happens when epsilon is less than 1, and a special case is when, let's say, epsilon is equal to 0. Epsilon is equal to 0, it means that C is also equal to 0. And if epsilon is 0, then your 1 by R is constant. And this corresponds to the equation of circle. So if the radius is constant, then it's going to move in a perfect, circle motion, right? And that's a very special case. So these are the three possibilities, the generalized conic sections that are possible. And we can see that this whole motion is characterized by, or the motion or trajectory is characterized by what we have defined epsilon, which basically depends upon C and Gm by h square. So, so these two quantities, C and the constant C, for which we are still to discuss about it, and this Gm, capital M, by angular momentum per unit mass square, determines everything, whether the satellite will move in an ellipse or it will just go away in a parabola or something like that. So these constants are basically determined by initial position and the initial velocity of satellite in a free flight. So these constants, they are determined. So again, the two constants in our hand is this and this, right? The rest is, universal constants. So this is determined by initial position and the velocity of satellite in free flight. Now this is important. So when the satellites are launched, um, so there is a what is called as a powered phase, and then there is a free flight phase. So there is, let's say, a launch that takes place from the surface of the Earth, and then there are rockets, and then there are at different stages they get off, and finally, let us say at the last stage, what is called as the burnout happens. So the idea is that after this burnout stage, now this is the satellite, which we call as particle P. The last boost is given at this stage, and at this stage, the general idea is that this is given perpendicular to the line joining the center of the Earth. So the programming is done that the powered phase, so this is what is called as powered phase, powered flight, right? Because in this region you have rockets and so on which are working and which are moving the satellite to a particular position. Now from this point P, this is where the free flight starts. So this is the position where the rockets and other things, they put the satellite into its position, and the position is, let us say, R naught, and during the burnout phase it also gives the satellite a velocity, let's say V naught, and then it leaves the satellite at this position into the free flight. So this is the the powered phase is programmed in such a way that at the last stage, the launching rocket, launching rocket burns out, and the satellite has got a velocity which is parallel to the surface of the Earth. And now from here, the free flight of the satellite takes place in the particular orbit determined by these constants, and that's how these constants determine whether it will be elliptic and so on. Now, how do we determine these constants? That's the question. So we know that the initial velocity is r naught times theta naught dot. So as I said, that the programming is done that this velocity is perpendicular to the r naught vector at the burnout phase. So this is the velocity, and I can write the angular momentum per unit mass as r naught square times theta naught dot, which is your r naught v naught. So this is the angular momentum per unit mass, h, and again, given these parameters r naught, v naught, h can be calculated. So h is known. Once h is known, we can also calculate gm by h square, right? So gm by h square can be calculated, and in fact can simplify it and write this as g times capital R square times h square, right? So it is just if you want to ease out the calculation, this gm can be replaced by small g times r square. Now, so these constants are known. Now the next constant is the constant c. So c is obtained by satisfying the initial condition. So we know that at this point the trajectory is going to begin. So the trajectory is given by this equation, r1 by r is equal to gm by h square plus c cos theta. At this position, we know that the initial condition or initial position as theta naught comma r naught, and theta naught, let's say if it is 0 degrees, and that's the axis from which we are measuring, and this is r naught, which is given to us. So this is 1, and so from here, from this, we can get 1 by r naught is equal to gm by h square plus c. And from here, you can calculate c is equal to 1 by r naught gm by h square. and now this constant c is also known. C is known and this constant is known. And now, based on the ratio whether C is greater than this or equal to this or less than this, we can predict what kind of motion the particle is going to take place. Now, if we consider a special case further, just if we just consider one. So one of the critical case is that of a parabola. Right? So if the parabola, hyperbola also, the particle is not going to come back. Parabola also, it is not going to come back. Only in ellipse it is going to come back, and it will keep on rotating and revolving. But so hyperbola is one extreme. Parabola is a critical case when it is just turning from hyperbola to parabola, and then beyond parabola, it will become ellipse, right? It will be the particle is going to move in an ellipse motion. So if we consider the specific case of this case, when we are talking about parabola, when it is just on the verge of whether it will come back or whether it will not come back. So in that case, the epsilon is equal to 1. And epsilon is basically, so your C, which we have calculated right now based on initial conditions, it is this. If this is equal to gm by h square, right? So this is the specific case. What will happen in such a case? This goes on other side, becomes 2. So it becomes 1 over rho is equal to 2 gm by h square. I'll write as rho vo square. Right? The h is going to remain a constant. It's the angular momentum per unit mass, and this is equal to rho vo, r naught v naught. This square gets here. And now if I calculate what should be the initial launching velocity, so v naught is equal to 2 gm by r naught square root. So this velocity is is the smallest value of velocity which for which the space vehicle or the satellite will not return, right? So if this is the velocity, or if so, for velocity v greater than or equal to v naught, the particle will not return back. And therefore this is called as what is called as escape velocity. So if the satellite is thrown with this velocity, it is not going to come back. And if v is less than v naught, then what it will have elliptic trajectory. Will keep on, So that is the escape velocity, and yeah, and then there are some small terms. So if particle moves like this, the closest position is called as perigee. These are some terms that you must know. So this is point A, and then this farthest distance is called as apogee. So generally the satellite motion, they begin at perigee, right? So here your flight begins, and that's how it travels. And in fact, now I can show you some slides for better figures. So if you can see my PowerPoint slide, yeah. So I'm just showing some good figures for you to understand better things. So this is the particle with position r comma theta. Now these are the three different cases that we talked about. So the first case, when epsilon is greater than 1, that case you have two angular position theta 1 and minus theta 1, for which you have hyperbola curve, and it will this theta 1 position is going to asymptotically meet at hyperbola at this theta 1 value, right? The second case is when epsilon is equal to 1. That is the case of parabola, and this is again, if the particle takes this trajectory, it is not going to come back. The third case is of epsilon less than 1, where it's going to have, so this is your perigee, this is your apogee, and your particle or satellite will move in this elliptic orbit. A further special case can be derived when your epsilon is equal to 0, and in that case you will have the pure circular motion, and you can even calculate the velocity v naught required, or the velocity of the satellite for it to move in a circular motion, and that is also possible. However, the most general type of motion is ellipse motion, for which it comes back. And even the, for example, ballistic missiles and so on, right? So for example, if some missiles have to one country to another country, so if you have particles moving over a very large distance where the gravitational field is variable, then even these ballistic missiles, they follow the trajectory of an ellipse, right? Because that's the most general solution that turns up out here. Of course, in our day-to-day experience, when we throw a ball, or throw a small scale some projectile, the gravitational field can be assumed to be uniform, and in that case the solution turns out to be a parabola. But otherwise the generalized motion is that of an ellipse. Okay, so I think there are some more slides here. Yeah. Yeah, this is the slide that I was talking about. So we launch some point here, and then the first phase is the powered phase of the flight, and then the burnout takes place. At point A, we, maybe the last stage of rocket, you impart a velocity v naught, and then by r naught, v naught, the initial conditions are determined, and that determines the trajectory of the free flight of the satellite, right? And now due to gravity, it is just going to keep on moving on and on, right? Yeah. And this is the third, another case of, the first is an ellipse. The second one, I think, is a circle, right? And so the first case, the velocity is more than circular velocity, but lesser than the escape velocity. So it moves in an ellipse, but then it's circle. And for other less than circular velocity, v naught less than circular velocity, it is again going to be an ellipse. So that's how, as I was talking about, that even the ballistic missiles and so on, they follow an elliptic trajectory. Yeah, I think that's all for today. So we'll stop this lecture.